Welcome to Greek for a Week. I'm glad that you have decided to watch this week's video. And we are continuing with our paragraph here, chapter 3, verses 1 through 6. And today we will be looking at verses 2 and 3 of chapter 3 of the book of Philippians. So here's verse 2 and verse 3. We'll go ahead and translate, and then we'll note a couple of things along the way. Paul says here, beware of the dogs. Beware of evil workers. Beware of false circumcision. For we ourselves are the circumcision, the ones who worship by the means of the Spirit of God and boast in Christ Jesus and do not place confidence in the flesh. So there's a couple of things that you'll note, I'm sure, right away in verse 2. Blepete. So here we have the recurrence here of blepete 3 times. You have the second person plural, present active imperative, of course, of the lexical form blepo. So you have that there. William Varner has written on the book of Philippians in the Baylor Handbook series. He quotes Reed stating this: these three imperative verbs precede the complement, probably because the idea of caution is the theme or is focal, not necessarily the objects of that caution, who are notably unidentified, as are all of the implied opponents in the letter. So here you have, I think, again, I appreciate Reed's point, because I think the context of this particular verse here, as well as in light of all of Philippians, is right on target. I think it's a caution to beware, to be on guard, more than it is the objects of what they're to be on guard against. So we'll move on to verse 3. You have a gar here, which is explanatory, explaining the circumcision here. Of course, he mes is our pronoun, personal pronoun. That is the subject with the he, peritame. This then is your predicate nominative. The hoi here, hoi, and latruantes. So those go together. That's your substantival participle, present active participle, masculine nominative plural. So that's why I translated it the ones who. Obviously it's plural, as well as it's a substantival participle. You have kaukomenoi. Here is another participle joined with kai, which would also make this a substantival participle. Present middle, you have the menoi here, present middle participle, masculine nominative plural again. And then finally, let me go to the end of the verse, the pepoithates. So here we also have a substantival participle. It's perfect active participle, masculine nominative plural. And here is our kai, once again joining all three of those substantival participles together. You have the pneumati here that I skipped over. This pneumati, probably again a dative of means. That's why I translated the ones who worship by the means of the Spirit, and then of God here, probably a genitive of source. The Spirit then is sourced in God. And I want to end now on the the final word here in verse 3, which is a participle again, I just want you to note that that is a perfect participle. So basically, what Paul is saying here is that they do not place confidence in the flesh or in circumcision. So here, with it being the perfect tense form, they're in a state of being. In other words, the current state of affairs or the state in which believers find themselves. Paul's saying, hey, we are not putting our confidence in the flesh, but we'll put our confidence in Christ Jesus. That's why he says we'll boast in Christ Jesus. That is that relational N, the dative there, N, relationship with Jesus Christ. Trust you have a great week. Next week we will look at verses 4, 5, and 6 and wrap up this paragraph.